Before we get into the show, a quick word from our sponsor. Today's episode is presented by Early Bird. Early Bird is the simplest way for parents, family, and friends to collectively invest in a child's financial future, starting at the earliest age. Early Bird's mobile app empowers parents and families to start saving for their child's financial future in a matter of minutes while activating a child's broader community to gift contributions on birthdays, holidays, or any occasion. Sometimes wait until we are adults to start learning about financial literacy, but being able to invest into a child's future now will set them up for financial success beyond belief. Let's go ahead and start breaking some generational habits of just being financially ruined by the time we make it to the cemetery. Take a Six Podcast is teaming up with Early Bird to give our listeners a free $15 investment to give to a child you love. Simply go to partners.getearlybird.io/podcast or just click the link in the bio. Download the app, create an account today. Early Bird will build the nest and invest in the children you love. Thank you, Early Bird, for sponsoring today's episode. Now let's jump into the show. What is something that you hold dear?
Ooh, that hit hard. Oh my goodness. Probably as a material possession, probably, I think I've talked about this before, if not on the show, but with you, the little mouse, stuffed animal that I have, Nibbles. His name is Nibbles. My mom got him for me when I was 12. It was 1999. Yeah, 12, 13 years old. After I hadn't seen her in like 2 weeks, so we went down to Bakersfield for a family trip. And that little rat has been with me through so many different things, milestones, little valleys, and little things like that. So that thing is, Nibbles is an OG. Gone through 3 dogs with Nibbles, Sable, our Chow, then Gizmo, and now Misty. Misty is the first one to actually try to kill Nibbles.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Not no knees, McGee.
Right? She's an assassin on ankles and thighs.
I want her to, she doesn't have to be such a bully.
She doesn't. I never thought about that. Her leg actually, like you said, she has no knees. Her leg goes from like puppy ankle to the little shin up to the thigh.
I'm telling you, she doesn't have any knees.
She doesn't. I
Just
look
the
at
way
her
she
legs.
hops down off the thing.
Stands there like with that staunchy build, like she's like sturdy, like planted to the ground because she has no knees.
That's all it is. She just has no knees. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Podcast. I'm your host, Leah, joined this week by Jason. Welcome.
Welcome to me. Thank you for having me. Welcome to you having me here.
Did you want more fanfare?
No.
Yay!
Well, I like doing the ASL applause because it's like a personal celebration.
Oh, look at you.
Fun. It's like confetti for me.
So you've been one of the ones consistently on this podcasting journey with me from afar and up close because you've been on quite a few episodes.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to take a step back to talk about in this year with so many different things have gone on in the last 12 months. I mean, really since the end of 2019, probably even before that. Oh, so many things happened.
End of 2019. Then I had my last drink on New Year's Eve. And then it was like, bam, okay, 2020, 2021, watch out.
Yeah. The world, like everybody's talking about trying to get back to normal or maintain some sense of normalcy or trying to get back to what feels right, what feels good. But everybody is kind of on edge. They're not really sure what is the next step. What are we supposed to do?
Because it's not like we can go back. We can't go from lockdowns and watching oh my God, where are we at? Like 700,000 people have died of COVID or something like that, 700. We can't go from watching that and then watching so many people suffer. And then also with the protests and stuff, the Black Lives Matter protests, everything. You can't go from all those extreme events and then go back to, okay, let's go back to 2019 now when everything was relatively peachy keen. Yeah, see that bell sound did it for us, right? But it works. We can't go back to something that is like you burn down a house and you try to go into it just by painting the walls over.
Yeah. And that's honestly, that's one of my concerns, is that people are so ready to go back to something that they knew, something that and I know it's a comfort,
Mhm.
instead of pivoting or adapting to what the
Yeah.
current situation is. They want to go back to something that they're comfortable with, because I didn't have to be a social justice warrior, or be
Mhm.
up on
And a social
all the
distance warrior.
political, a social distance warrior, on, everything being politicized, and having an opinion about this or that turns into a full-blown argument, with people not necessarily trying to hear each other out or understand, but just attempt to try to change your mind about stuff.
Just to
Or
have themselves heard.
yeah, or everybody having a platform on social media, and platforms being uplifted higher than some other platforms, and misinformation being spread so fast that
Mhm.
you don't even know if you're coming or going. And it makes it really difficult to stay planted when your life is uprooted from what it used to be, whether you went into the office on a regular basis, or if you were an entrepreneur, or if you were a face-to-face business person, or if you were a teacher. Like, things are completely different now.
Yeah. The one, like you said, everything these past 2 years now, I guess like this year and last year, it seems like it's just been nothing but just years of extremes. Just
Mhm.
if something is happening, then it's like the biggest ever. The fact that the salmon population in like Canada and Washington and stuff they're going to probably be really impacted because of the extreme heat waves. It's extreme weather, it's extreme personal interactions with people.
Yeah.
Everything is just to the extreme. And so, like you said, we can't really have all those extremes and then try to hit the reset and go back and play nostalgia with 2019.
Yeah. This is
It,
this is how, like, how out of touch I have been in my life. And I told you about this, and I had to consider why I did this. I was in Target, happened to see a person from about 3 years ago. We actually got into it. It was a verbal dispute of sorts. And when I saw this person, my brain was just like, oh my gosh, a face that you recognize, say hi. Like, that was my brain. I did not even process until we were 3 minutes into the conversation. Like,
that's right. I don't
no,
mess with you.
we don't need to converse.
Right. We didn't end well.
No, we don't need to converse at all. But it's interesting how we look for those normal things.
Yeah.
We look for those things of comfort. We look at those things to, like, kind of ground us, of just like, no, this is I guess this is normal, or what am I supposed to do? Like that Ricky Bobby, like Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands. What do I do with my hands? I'm
Know the
not really
reference,
sure.
never seen the movie.
See.
I know the reference though. Um, what was I gonna say? I was about to say something really good. Just that, oh crap, I can't remember what I was gonna say now. Talladega Nights just took it out of me.
Oh gosh.
It'll come back to me. But yeah, just that even with teaching, I think like that's what I was gonna say. I'm sorry. Just the idea of trying to go back to what we already know is something that I can't really wrap my head around, because
Hmm.
I don't think that so many of us have. I think part of the problem is that so many of us, the world hasn't been so changed, like just on like a global scale. Like everything feels different, and so it's like everyone at once is trying to adjust to that massive change. And so I think that's making it even more challenging. And I think that's part of the reason why you didn't register with that interaction with noticing that person at Target. That's part of the reason why you didn't just turn the other way. You were like, oh my God, familiarity. I have to talk to him.
Yes, I need to interact. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
why did I do that? But even with so many people recognizing that we're trying to adjust. There are people who are great at pivoting, people who
Yeah.
are great at adjusting, and there are others who, it takes a little while to coax them into the shallow end of the swimming pool
Mm-hmm.
and get them out before they get out to the deep waters. But the people who are great at pivoting, some of them are, it's like opposite ends of the spectrum, are yelling at the people who are sitting on the sidelines,
Yeah.
trying to wait for, I'm just waiting for the tides to go down.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what are you doing? Get in here. We need to do. And I'm just like, hey guys, like whatever side you're on, that's your thing.
There's a middle ground here that we can
Yeah.
find.
Just, you don't, it's okay if there was a post that said, um, we've been in this quarantine for the last 5 months. And if you haven't read a book, learned a language, got a new hustle,
Oh,
all these things, like there was like a list of self-improvement things. And it's like
I saw that.
somebody's life was taken. Like what they knew is no more.
People are depressed. People are broke. Like everybody
They're
is suffering
anxious.
financially.
Oh,
People are
absolutely.
just anxious about their housing. They're anxious about their kids. They're just anxious just about the energy that's in the air. I
Mm-hmm.
saw that meme. I think probably saw it last year, and I got angry at seeing that meme than I would like to admit. Like it really frustrated me, and it was kind of hurtful in a sense because it really discounted what people are going through and how this isn't just like, oh, I finally get time off work.
Right, right.
And some
And
people, when they are faced with extreme changes, they need a time to really step back and take care of themselves and process stuff away from any kind of outside stimulation.
the interesting thing is I had the opposite. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, I should be learning something. I should be doing something. But then
That's what infuriated
also
me.
would beat myself down because what have I been doing for the last 2 months?
Keeping yourself
And
alive
yeah, I mean,
in a
listen,
pandemic, in a global
listen.
pandemic.
When our country can't figure itself out, we're becoming more polarized by the day.
Mhm,
But it's the once I realized that it's not about the things that I accomplished in quarantine or like, oh no, I'm having a quarantine body, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like you can if this was your time to shine in quarantine, then do you. There's so many people who got blue check marks on
mhm,
Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, just because now they have time to put out their
yeah.
content. But honestly, that is a privilege that I feel like people do not recognize as a privilege. When you
Mhm,
have the space and opportunity, whether you had a job and now you don't have a job, or your job is now not paying as much, or you have to get a second job, or
mhm,
you're on the front lines, or whatever the case, however you choose to deal with it, you're not wrong. Just like your opinion can be uninformed, but you're not wrong for dealing with it the way you have to deal with it. And what's sad is that a lot of people look to shame everyone else for
mhm,
not doing. Oh, you got to be beast mode, and you have to make sure that you are conquering your day every single day. You go out there,
mhm.
you give it 135%, and if you're not doing 1,600%, then you might as well stay in bed. But if you stay in bed, you're a loser. And it's like, wherever you are, I have not been. So, and then wherever I am, you're probably not. So don't make it seem like I have to rise to the occasion if I either can't pay my bills,
Mhm,
can't find work that's going to give me a livable wage. I may have family that I have to consider. Like I may be close with my elder relatives, and now I can't see them.
mhm.
Like everything that was normal is now gone. So this idea of having to own a space that's not yours to occupy, I think that is probably the harshest one of the harshest things that you can say to somebody,
Yeah.
or force upon somebody.
It discredits and sort of just completely neglects the fact that even the content that people are putting out that got them those blue check marks and everything, that's just the end result. It's not like we got to see them through the entire process, through whether they quit their job, whether they just figured out how to manage their time differently, through working at home or something. No matter what, all we saw is the end product. So a lot of people are still in that middle part of their journey. If there is another destination that they're getting to, they're
Mm-hmm.
still in that middle part. But everything that we see, for the most part, as far as content, as far as social media, as far as even like Love and Hip Hop and stuff, yes, that's what we're watching right now. Even as far as Love and Hip Hop, that kind of thing, all we're seeing is that final polished product that
Right.
everybody thinks is, oh, well, I don't have the perfect quarantine body. I don't have the pecs. I don't have the traps and the glutes and everything.
Listen, it's empowering to know that I have a circle around me who I can call on and say, "Hey, help me with my perspective on this."
Mm-hmm.
Some people, a lot of people, don't have that where they can have real feedback. My life is not lived online, so even if they get the blue check mark, it's just because they're posting on a regular basis. Not that
Yeah,
their content is great.
and sort of figured out
It's
the formula.
yeah. So, but
No
you
shade.
know, content aside, like it can feel like everybody's becoming, a millionaire and posting all the, oh, I was able to quit my job and now I have, 100,000 followers on Instagram and I'm making XYZ money and all this and the third. And I'm just like,
Where's your LLC? Where's your LLC?
yeah, that, like, oh my gosh, start a business, do this for your family. Do, like, we are so bombarded with so much information. But when I take a step back and I have to, like, now I'm not wearing my watch because I'm too connected to everything. so,
How many? Yeah,
so
that would be one of my questions. How many notifications did you have? Did you have like all the notifications? Everything that comes to your phone goes to your watch?
no, only emails and emails, text messages, and phone calls.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't. If I had alarms, it was like my morning alarm
right.
or like a nap alarm, but I don't have everything on
Not your
because
work email, right?
no, no,
Oh, okay.
all that stuff
Good.
stays on my work computer, and I only see it when I log in.
Where it needs to stay.
Yeah,
Only during business hours.
but I can't imagine. I can't imagine talking down to somebody, discounting their entire
Yeah.
experience to say that, you should be at this level, you should be doing this without, I can encourage you to say, hey, this is possible if you want to start taking the steps.
Mhm.
But to tell somebody that, you're pitiful or you're pathetic because you are not
Because all you did is survive a global pandemic so far.
right.
So far.
Yeah, all you're doing is still breathing. All you're doing is still standing. All you're doing is making it from day to day. And sometimes that's what people need to make it to
Mhm.
from day to day. Like, it's like the fact that somebody is still here, whether they post a comment or send a text or call a family friend. I am glad that you're on this side of the dirt
Mhm.
because you could have, been elsewhere. A lot of people when the pandemic, like the first 6 months of the pandemic, suicide rates
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah, there's actually, remember the colleague that I told you about that ended his life and gave
Yeah.
me pause and was like, oh, is this something like, if this is where, just for frame of reference, the person who what is the phrase, took his life, he was in a similar position to me in the fact that he's an adjunct in our district, but he has reached a certain level that I thought that I would reach as far as like where in my academic career. And out of the blue last April, the district, or the union, actually sends an email saying that he took his life. Long story short, the colleague, somebody that I met like through a mutual friend at a few different parties or whatever, so not anybody that I was like really close to. He actually
Mm-hmm.
taught at a different campus and everything, but he's somebody that I was familiar with. But he ended up taking his own life. And from what I heard from the other, like people who worked closely with him in the union, one of his stressors, not that anybody knows exactly why it happened, one of
Mm-hmm.
his stressors was the uncertainty of his position and just being an adjunct, and how our district has historically somewhat overlooked us and kind of shown that we don't really matter too much. So when that happened, that's when I really took a step back and I was like, okay, I need to give myself credit. Like you said, I've taught 3 classes, 3 semesters online to see people through to their long-term goals, their academic goals, their professional goals.
Right.
I need to give myself credit in that sense that I haven't done as much for myself that I, as much as I would have liked to have done for myself, like maybe shooting more on my with my camera and everything, or actually starting my podcast. Like I'm doing all right for seeing people to graduation and everything and
Listen.
being alive and staving off a nervous breakdown at certain parts. You know, we talk.
Oh
Like
no.
we're
Yeah.
doing all right. The kids are all
Listen.
right. Staving off most of the nervous breakdown.
I was gonna say I've had quite a few. I mean, is just even in realizing, that I'm not going to be where I want to be physically
Mhm.
in like next year, next couple of years. It's
Yeah.
it's more like, but it's the right decision, you know.
It's still
Um,
a sort of grieving process that you have to go through that through, like, even though it's paused, it's not like it's completely off the table. It's paused from where
right,
you initially anticipated being at that point. So it's still sort of like a grieving process. Like, okay, I have to have the angry phase that you're going to go through or probably went
right.
through, have the bargaining, like, well, I can still visit. But
Because I say that all the time. Like I'm absolutely going
yeah.
to visit. Like we have to make sure that we
Yeah.
once this is once I get to a place of I'm okay with stepping out. Like I want to go back to Alki Beach. I want to get back on the water
Yeah.
taxi. Like
I
they're
actually
just
saw
the
an
places.
apartment over there. I was like, okay, if that position that we talked about, everybody put good vibes out there for Bellevue College. If that position pans out, I'm like, could I
Yes.
live in West Seattle where I could be in like Alki Beach? Like that would be great. But
I
then I'm
had
like,
to
no,
stop
that is
saying
a long
alkali.
commute. Me
Is
too. It
it
reminds me of
is
Alki, right?
see, yes,
It reminds
yes.
me of
Alkali
Alkali Lake.
Lake.
Yep.
Yes. I had to remind myself to stop saying it. So how have you fared in owning the space that you occupy? I think that's how I want to say it. How do you fare in owning the space that you've occupied these last couple of years? Because we are, a year and a half into this seems like never ending pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think that we're going to have any real sense of normalcy on a larger scale until maybe 2024 because people in the US are wanting to do their own thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Sacramento County has a 49% vaccination rate, just so you know.
really,
That was as of last weekend, 49%. And
fully
apparently
fully vaccinated.
that's one, yeah, I think fully vaccinated, but that's one of the lower ones in California.
I'm surprised it's that high.
Me too.
I'm really surprised that it is that high.
Yeah.
I bet you Grass Valley is lower. Shout out to all the people who don't know what we're talking about, but that's okay. Um,
Research Sacramento, Elk Grove, those cities. Well, not Sacramento City proper. Think of Google Sacramento and then look at all the cities around Sacramento and look at the news stories related to COVID in those cities. And you'll have a better understanding of why we're surprised that 49% happened in Sacramento County.
but that's just an aside. I
I
want to know.
digress. She digresses.
I want to know how have you fared in this last like year and a half, owning the space that you occupy. I know that you said you have really thrown yourself into helping students. You really tried to
I just rolled my
assist.
eyes.
You did, and you rolled your
Yeah, we
eyes at
talked
the
about that.
same time that I'm thinking about a name.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, oh, that is probably
For
thinking
the
about the same person.
for the record, any of my students who come across this, that eye roll was not for you unless it's you and you know who you are. These
You
very
know which
specific
ones gave
students.
me hell. You know which ones you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to know, like, how have you fared in this last year and a half?
I think better than I expected. Um,
Did you had expectations?
Better than in retrospective. In retrospect, I've at the beginning I thought that I was panicked like everyone because I had literally, for
Mm,
me it seemed like I went and taught on a Thursday and then by Friday it was like, oh yeah, we're shutting down, because I wasn't paying attention to the news too much. Like I saw news reports about like a virus and stuff and the concerns that it was going to get out of control. But I
mhm.
figured things would be like when SARS happened and when bird flu happened, where it was like
When
there were going to be few,
Ebola came to Texas, yeah, all that.
yeah, relatively um, well contained.
Hmm.
I overestimated the power of politics. So for the most part,
Hmm.
during those first few months, I didn't really have too many concerns, honestly, about getting sick because we just weren't leaving the house. So I wasn't concerned about being exposed and stuff like that. But the thing that stressed me out initially was just the political stuff and how logic was being completely disregarded. I'm a very logical, analytical person. I need as much information as possible so I can make an informed decision. So I was seeing everything and I was reaching my conclusion that was in line with what everybody else was saying, because it was like everybody wants to stay alive. But I saw so much in the politics, not paying attention to that logic, that caused me more anxiety and more being depressed like early on. So
Hmm.
I would say up until maybe March through June, it was all about teaching and making sure that my students were okay and making sure that they were solid. Once everything calmed down, then everything with Black Lives Matter happened with those protests and everything blown up the way that it did, which is perfect. I loved watching it. Honestly, I loved seeing everything that was happening because it was just frustration. And so everybody was frustrated. I was like, okay, we know you need it, whatever. Um, Once that happened, that's when I started getting more anxious and more depressed, because then the National Guard started driving by our apartment.
Mm,
So it wasn't so much in the sense of I didn't want the outcome of whatever the protest would lead to. It was that I don't like feeling unsafe in my own home. And when the National Guard is driving by any kind of authority figure, I'm figuring like, okay, something's gonna, will they cause problems over here? Will they be like the officers who are overstepping and everything?
and
And
initiating, yeah.
yeah, initiating conflicts and stuff. And so that was my concern. Um, so what's that? June through maybe August, then it rolled back around to teaching and stuff. By that point with my teaching, it had turned into me, which I made known with you, having more resentment towards it because I felt like I was giving too much and not taking care of myself. And so I was sort of having those frustrations by that point. This past
Yeah.
semester, like January through May, I wasn't teaching my own classes. So I was just mentoring and tutoring, which was perfect because it was like almost a forced sabbatical. And so I was able to step back and think about why I want to help students and why I want to make sure that I put distance between them and me and take care of myself. So, first quarter of the pandemic, nervous and anxious. Second half, nervous, anxious, and feeling unsafe because of the National Guard. The other one, then I got angry. And then now it's like I'm more comfortable with myself, actually, which is bizarre because I've never felt so comfortable with myself. And like with my body, I gained weight over quarantine. I did. But initially, where I'm like, yes, I was very slim. I know. I knew
I
you were.
wasn't going to say anything.
I saw your face.
I
I
wasn't. I wasn't going to say anything.
saw your face, but I have like this thing about my face looking older. And so when I gain weight, I usually gain it first in my cheeks, like my cheeks get a little puffier, and then my midsection, my belly, because I like to eat sugar a lot. So I get that little pudge in my from eating my cookies and stuff. But this time when it happened, it's like, okay, yeah, I was paying more attention to like the different things on Instagram, like, okay, your body, this is the body that got you through a quarantine. And so I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, this is the body that is getting me through quarantine with fibromyalgia, with this extremely stressful job, with this extremely stressful personal stuff that's going on in my family and stuff with my family's health,
Yeah.
and just the political, just the world with everybody's going through. This is the body that got me through it. I'm like, this body is okay. Like whatever this body looks like, I can work with it. Like however I feel in this body, it's okay. It's fine because I'm taking care of it well enough that it's getting me through these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I haven't had a heart attack yet, so that's good.
Yet.
Had
What?
any Haven't had any strokes yet or anything, right? So the
Why are you
body is
saying
doing.
yet? Why are you saying yet? Are you expecting to have? What are you doing?
I'm not. I'm
Oh
not
gosh.
expecting. I'm just doing like one of those knock on wood things. I don't want to put it out there and then have the universe be like, "Well, you called."
Oh gosh.
Knock on
Yeah.
wood.
How did you manage these emotions? Like, because like you said, a lot of these go from one extreme to the other.
Mhm. Therapy.
So therapy is
Yes,
just.
therapy. Every 3 weeks. When it's funny because right before the pandemic started,
Mhm.
we had switched to a 4 to 5 week schedule. Me and my therapist, just like a check-in, just for the anxiety and stuff that is prevalent, just having general anxiety.
Yeah.
Once the pandemic started, I noticed how like the switch over with my job and stuff, with how the duties were changing and everything. And so I ramped it up to 2 weeks at first and then 3 weeks. But therapy has been really helpful, and just learning from my therapist, just moving with intention. So everything that I'm doing now, there's a purpose behind it. Behind
Yeah.
this board here that is sitting behind me, there's a purpose behind it, for me to do my job better, to create my own separation in my bedroom between my workspace and where I need to learn how to go to sleep. So moving with intention, therapy, and honestly, just reminding myself that everybody is going through their own experience with this pandemic. So they have their own life, their own concerns, their own worries and everything that they're dealing with, that they're bringing to their interaction with me. And so
Mhm.
that's made it so much easier for me to separate myself from whatever they're putting onto me. So I'm like,
Mm.
oh, that's not for me. That's okay. I understand. So it's made me more empathetic in that sense.
Well, you're an empath already, but
Yeah.
it's so so as you're going to therapy, as you're learning more about yourself,
Mhm.
mentally, physically, spiritually, everything, how do you then reconcile like what is normal for
There is
you?
no normal. Like
So
there,
what do you how do you define that?
um, I don't think that I've, I can't really say. I think one of the reasons, going back to what we were talking about earlier, one of the reasons why I have a problem with that idea of going back to normal before quarantine, quote unquote,
Hmm.
is because from an extremely early age, there's always been a lot of moving parts to my life and whatever's going on, like
Hmm.
family and everything. So I'm used to things messing up and things getting like really bad and like losing people and stuff, and
Hmm.
then adapting from it or adapting to it. So that's why it was weird. Like after the quarantine, maybe after like 3 or 4 months, that's like my normal grieving period. Actually, like when someone dies, like 3 or 4 months, I start to go through things, like different anger, just the sadness and everything. And then by that fourth month, I start to think about, okay, how do I fix this? How do I fix how I move forward from this? So just being able to be adaptable has been the biggest contributing factor. What is the biggest
I don't know what
benefit?
you're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to almost like not drawback, but like the most beneficial trait that I've brought to this pandemic, I guess, is just
Okay.
my adaptability. for better or for worse. That's one of the positives of being chronically anxious. You always plan.
So, what do you hope would be a normalcy for you? Like going, so if so we're, a year removed from today.
Mhm.
We're heading into 2023.
Mhm.
And what do you hope would be a normal thing for you?
Did you say 2023?
Yeah. So if it's a year from now, because we're heading into
Oh, okay.
2022,
Yeah. Okay.
we're heading into 2023. What would be
Yeah, I
something
got you.
that is normal?
Um, Maintaining my boundaries. Um, that would be personally, that's what I would want my normal to look like. So, because that can translate to every facet of my life,
Yeah,
like family,
absolutely.
friends, everything. So, even in the sense of like, if somebody invites me somewhere or something, I want to make sure that I stay comfortable with saying, yeah, it's not for me. I don't want to go out at this point because I don't feel comfortable or I just don't feel like it.
Hmm.
I feel like everybody has been doing that over the past few months, but I feel like it's getting to the point where people are like, "Oh yeah, you're vaccinated. We're gonna wear masks and stuff. We're still outside. Why aren't you coming?" And so I want to make it normal for me to just say,
Because I don't want to
"Yeah,
go.
I don't want to go. I just want to
Right.
sit down and just be by myself." So yeah, maintaining those kind of boundaries, and then
Hmm.
also I want everyone, honestly, I want everyone to respect that everybody needs time by themselves. Like, even if you are an extrovert, it does. And not saying that for people who literally lived alone during like the first 6, 7 months of the quarantine, not saying that they should, oh, you should quarantine for a month. No, it's okay to isolate yourself sometimes, to take like a day or two away from everyone to reset yourself. So I want everyone to keep that in mind and keep on that mindset and respect that for a lot of people, because
I'm
you need to recharge.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned boundaries, because that is something that, and it could be it could be my algorithm, but I'm seeing a lot of people who are trying to empower other people to own their boundaries, because we have gone through a year and a half of muck. We and we want to do things, eat things, try things, experience things that make us feel good. And when you talk to me a certain way, it doesn't feel good. When you treat me a certain way, it doesn't feel good. When I'm dismissed, it doesn't feel good. Or when I'm doing this job, it doesn't feel good. So if these things don't make me feel good, I'm not going to continue them. Going
Right.
out may not make me feel good. And so I would hope that people learn to honor how their body kind of reacts to certain things. And either, because sometimes it could be a trigger, but other times it could be that you have, trained your body to accept less than what it needs.
Right.
And I'm just going to say this for the people who are dealing with triggers right now. Um, that is a personal thing that you should work on. It should not be on, like, other people should not be beholden to walking around your feelings in hopes of not triggering you. I'm just
You're taking us in another direction
I'm
now.
just I'm saying, like, I don't know why a lot of people are just like, well, don't talk about this because it's triggering for me. It is not up to me or the entire world to be nice or talk softly or whatever. Like, it's not. You have to learn to not control your emotions, but manage them so that they're not controlling you. So that, yeah, something somebody has said may remind you of somebody in your past, and now you are upset about it. But it's not that person's fault. They weren't there. They didn't get a script to say, oh, I'm now returning from season 2 saying the same thing somebody else said to you in your life, just so that you could have a triggering event. No, like, you have to, and because I had to do the same thing. I'm not going to, tell someone, if now somebody crosses a line or crosses one of my boundaries, Yes, I will say, hey, this is a boundary. Please don't cross it. Respect it. I appreciate it. But if I'm triggered because their personality reminds me of something else, or I have some kind of visceral reaction because it's taking me back to a past situation, that's a triggering event for me that I have to work out in myself. That's not for the world to be like, hey, Leah doesn't like hearing so much cursing, so let's all not curse.
I love cursing. I mean, I
Like,
don't do it, but yeah.
but it's not that. That's not what it is. It's not. I just have to learn how to not be triggered by certain events or certain things that people say, or not, and not let it control me. But that's just an aside. I just wanted to talk about it. But maintaining your boundaries to do what feels good is because we're all chasing that thing that makes us feel good, because it has been, um it hasn't been the greatest. You're, for some people, they've had some great times,
I
but
think everybody needs
emotionally,
those dopamine shot right now. So
yeah, I don't manage emotions very well because emotions suck. Like, they take a lot out of me. It takes a
it's
lot,
a lot.
like, to have to deal, like, personal. First of all, anybody who's wanting to experience personal growth, it is worse than training for a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It is worse than training for the Ironman competition. It is probably the toughest thing you will ever do,
Mm-hmm.
but it is the best thing once you actually get through it.
It's like a
Um,
deep tissue massage where it hurts in the moment, but it
oh,
is for the greater good.
but the healing is not linear.
No.
It's not, because there's going to be some progress, and then there's going to be some regression, and then you're going to progress a little bit more, and then you may go back and then be like, hey, I thought I was over this, but then you're really not, so you got to dig a little deeper to find some more stuff, and then you
Mm-hmm.
realize, oh, I had more stuff under the stuff, let me dig for that. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of breakdowns I've had during quarantine, but
Mm-hmm.
they've all made me more aware of myself. I'm able to speak directly to what it is I want, to what it is I need. I've learned to check a lot of my behaviors that, um, were not good for long term relationships. And it's helped me to really push past what my limiting beliefs were of who I thought I was and what I thought I was only good for. I feel like if you do nothing else this quarantine, nothing else this lockdown, nothing else during this time, even with the world still opening back up. And I think like Spirit just canceled almost 100 flights or something like that.
Um,
Um,
Spirit
yeah,
and Frontier. Like
I'm not
Frontier is
surprised.
going through it too. Why do I think it's
I,
hilarious?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. They put wings on a bus
Is there a
and said,
pilot
let's go.
plane? Please.
But but it's like, it, I feel like if we can learn to find out who we are, it's going to suck. It's going to hurt, especially if you've been doing a lot of work to hide from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It That's probably the best thing, because then we can be honest with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We can have our integrity. We're not just doing things for clout, doing things for likes, doing things in hopes of being seen as valuable or validated by social media or
With
people
someone else's
who,
gaze.
right, like, we don't have to look for our beauty in someone else's eyes. Like, we can absolutely see it for ourselves once we're honest enough with ourselves about who we are. So, thank you so much for being on the show. As always, this has been such a lovely conversation.
A long
Um,
one.
if you, it's probably going to be in a couple different episodes. I feel like this is going
That's
to be
good.
at least 2 or 3 episodes.
Okay.
I think we have a lot of content here that I can use. Can you tell people where they can find you or plug anything that you have?
Not working on any big projects right now, but you can find me on Twitter at JJ_Newberry, and Instagram also at JJ_Newberry. You can also click on the Visco link that's there on either of those websites. Check out my photography. Let me know how great I am. Gas me up. Or tell me where I can improve. I'm always looking to improve on my skills.
Hey. Well, thank you so much. I mean, these conversations are so invaluable. I truly, truly appreciate anytime you're on the show.
I appreciate you. I do, seriously.
I feel appreciated every time we talk.
Good. Good. You better. Do you feel the appreciation?
I don't want you to whisper that to me ever, though.
Lean into the mic, go NPR mode.
No, I don't.
I'm not gonna do
it. But thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Podcast. I've been your host, Leah, joined by Jason, aka JJ Newberry. Please make sure to go follow him and check out his Visco. Make sure that you check out his photography. Make sure that you tune in for the live this week. We'll be sure to post what day we're going live. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Take Up Space POD. That's Take Up Space Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a great one.